It's the Full Court Press with Eric Franson and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here on a Monday, and an interesting Monday it is. Had the whole weekend to react and digest what happened in the NBA draft, with the Jazz picking up 3 new players, using each of their picks at 9, 16, and 28. Those rookies arrived in Utah over the weekend and were introduced earlier today in a press conference. We'll have that audio for you guys. We'll play that a little later in the hour. Obviously, the big news for the Jazz, making a trade. The weekend wasn't enough. They needed another new player to add to the team. You heard it in the top of the hour news blurb there. The Utah Jazz sending Rudy Gay and a future second-round pick to the Atlanta Hawks in exchange for power forward John Collins. It's John Collins is a player the Jazz have reportedly been interested in for a while. And then there's been rumors about Collins being traded from the Hawks for about 3 years now. And the value has just gradually gone down. The perception of John Collins' value has just fallen and fallen and fallen until now he's traded for a very old expiring contract and a second-round pick. So the Jazz basically getting John Collins for just about free. You're sending a future second-round pick and a guy who has basically no future with the Utah Jazz outside of this year. That's what you're giving up to get a guy who at one point was a 20-10 player. 20 points, 10 rebounds per game. He's obviously fallen off quite a bit. So there's a reason that John Collins was available for as little. And certainly there's some cause for concern. But there's a lot to this trade that alters what the Jazz may be doing this offseason. It now creates new priorities. At least from our perspective, they were probably already had their list of priorities and are now just going down the checklist. But their free agency priorities kind of look different now. They don't have as much cap space, and they're probably going to be targeting some very specific types of players. Or maybe they swing for another trade. There's obviously the rumors of Damian Lillard. I personally don't think Damian Lillard's coming to Utah, and I don't think that would be a good idea, but the Jazz going to be looking for a point guard in free agency or with trades. So if you guys want to text into the show, give your reactions, what you think as far as the Jazz trading for Collins, what they should do now, whether or not this puts the Jazz back into the playoffs or even to be a bit of a higher seed. If you guys want to text in, 435-339-0321. On the text chat, 5338, starting us out on the right foot. I should read this as it's typed because it's funny. I won't, though. But it says, "Hey, Coach Pop." And a bit of a typo with Coach Pop. There's an extra O in there. 5338, continuing his run of Victor Wembanyama impressions, says, "Hey, Coach Pop, I've lost blood circulation to my foot just like Prime. Looks like it's going to have to come off. That won't keep me out of the starting lineup, will it? Signed, Victor Wembanyama." Or Victor W, as 5338 puts it. So 5338 really going in trying to troll the Spurs. Like, are you hoping that Victor Wembanyama has a Greg Oden career, basically? I don't know. There's part of me that, is just intrigued by Victor Wembanyama, and part of me just hopes that he doesn't pan out because, again, salty about the Spurs getting another number 1 overall pick. But getting back to the Utah Jazz, we'll focus on the hometown team or the home state team with John Collins and just giving more background to John Collins, who he is, what he's been in his career. This is a guy who I think he's in his 5th or 6th year. I wrote down some of his stats, but didn't have all the information. So he'll actually be in his 7th NBA season this upcoming year. Drafted in 2017, spent his whole career with the Atlanta Hawks. In year 2, he made a big jump. As a rookie, he was, bench player, did start some games, played a little over 20 minutes per game. But in his second year, he made that jump. Averaged 30 minutes per game, averaged 19.5 points, just a hair under 10 rebounds per game, and also 2 assists per game. Arguably his best year, although the next season, his age 22 season, granted, he only played 41 games in that season, 2019-20, that season. He averaged 21.6 points, 10.1 rebounds, 1.5 assists, shot 58% from the field, including 40% from 3. However, you'll notice in all those years, that was a while ago. Over the last 3 years, he's just seen a gradual and steady decline. Generally playing about the same minutes, but every year since that great season 4 years ago, his field goal percentage has gone down every year. His 3-point percentage has gone down every year. His rebounds, they've gone down net by, it went down to 7.4, then it went back up briefly, but now it's down to 6.5. His assists have gone down. And his points per game have gone down every single year. So just everything has seen a gradual and steady decline. Some of them a consistent year by year, it's always lower. To the point where last year, so remind, this is a guy who averaged 21 and 10 on 58% shooting, 40% from 3. Last year, John Collins scored 13.1 points per game, averaged 6.5 rebounds, shot 50% from the field, and 29% on threes. So that is the decline of John Collins. He has just not worked in Atlanta. He went from a guy who was trending toward being an all-star, a high-level player, and now he's a salary dump. That's what he was. He's owed $70+ million over 3 years. I think that includes a player option. He is overpaid for what he's been producing. But the reason that John Collins has been in so many trade rumors is that there's a widely held belief that Collins just doesn't fit in Atlanta. Now, I don't know why he does. This is a guy who is a pick and roll, pick and pop machine, or at least should have been. This is a guy who's for 3 years, or for at least back-to-back seasons, was shooting 40% from 3. His career 3-point percentage is almost 36. So at worst, he's an average 3-point shooter if you take his career average. This is a guy who can pick and pop and is a deadly pick and roll finisher. He's a great rebounder, has been a great rebounder in his career. Like I said, he has 2 seasons averaging near or slightly above 10 rebounds per game. Decent enough passer where he can average 1.5 to 2 assists per game. Can even block a shot, about 1 per game. So, I don't know why he wouldn't fit next to a guy like Trae Young, who is great in the pick and roll, fantastic in his lob threats. And I believe actually it was his 2018-19, 2019-20, those 2 seasons where he was averaging about 20 and 10. I think those were Trae Young's first 2 years. So you can see where Collins was taking this massive leap, partly because he should fit with Young, but for some reason he just doesn't. For some reason, it's just not working with John Collins. So the hope is that the Jazz will, everyone has had the thought, can the Jazz do to John Collins what they did to Lauri Markkanen? Markkanen, I guess, needed a, second or third change of scenery Going from the Bulls to the Cavs, finally in Utah, made it work. Maybe it's Will Hardy's system that just made Lauri Markkanen work. Will that same thing work for John Collins? Because that's kind of the same thing with Markkanen, as he unleashed this ultimate shooter slasher, model or archetype, where he was just able to, it's either a dunk or a 3-pointer. There's a stat where he was one of the first players to hit, I think, some amount of threes and also have a certain amount of dunks. It was like 300 threes and 100 dunks, or something to that effect. He unlocked this high production, even in fairly low volume. Like Markkanen, one of the things that made him unique was his incredibly low usage and high production. Can John Collins do the same? Can he also be this kind of slasher shooter player? Maybe there's that possibility. Is John Collins, was he just a flash in the pan? Was he a one-hit wonder over a couple seasons? And what he really is like a 14-point per game, 7-rebound guy, okay shooter. Or maybe he's closer to that 20 and 10 guy. Maybe the Jazz will unlock that from John Collins. It'd certainly be nice if they do, because they could push the Jazz closer to the playoffs than they were last year. 4781 texting in. Says a park bench is better than Rudy Gay. I think Ainge just got away with another robbery. And yeah, I think so. I've seen one person who was upset about this deal. They thought it was an awful trade. I don't understand why anyone would think this is an awful trade. There's basically zero downside. Like, the Jazz have to pay people because they have to get to the salary floor. They have to spend a certain amount of money on salary. So you have to pay somebody. And unless you want to sign like 29, 30-year-old veterans to big contracts, then this is going to be one of your best options. Like you can either sign an old veteran who doesn't really have any long-term value to the franchise just to have him, and then you got to play him a bunch because you're paying him a bunch of money, so then you got to pay him. And then maybe he's taking minutes away from some of your young guys. And again, it's a guy with no future for the franchise who ends up hurting maybe the development of some of your younger players. John Collins could be in the future of the Jazz. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. When we said that about Lauri Markkanen, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I was doubtful that Markkanen would have a future with the Jazz. But he changed my mind real quick on that, where we want Markkanen around long term. Maybe Collins can do the same. So you get, and again, it's cheap as free. Like a second-round pick, throw those away. Like, seriously, how many times does a second-round pick come into Utah and actually perform well? And like, we've had more success out of undrafted players than we have out of second-round picks. Like, just, like I said, you're getting rid of a veteran and a second-round pick. Cheap is free. And you get a guy with the potential of John Collins. Like, that is a robbery. 471 adding, also our front and back court could be an average of 7 feet. Good luck opposing teams. Delta Center is coming back with a lot of steam. Yeah, and this certainly creates an interesting thing. Mind you, having Taylor Hendricks, which we'll get into how Taylor Hendricks fits in all this and how he might be a bit of a loser in this trade. But, yeah, that front court. Now, I don't know about the back court. It depends on what the Jazz decide to do there. But, yeah, you have a front court, and this is one of the things that a lot of NBA aggregate accounts or NBA, accounts that just make their living off of posting pictures and asking ridiculous questions. They're throwing around, is this the best backcourt in the NBA? Is the front court is this the best front court in the NBA? Like the front court of Lauri Markkanen, who's an all-star, John Collins, who I guess at one point was trending toward being an all-star, and Walker Kessler, one of the best rookies last year, and the most impactful rookie in terms of contributing to winning, with his defense and rebounding and incredibly efficient offense. Is that the best front court in the NBA? Well, the answer is no. especially if Brook Lopez ends up staying with Milwaukee. That's your best front court. And it depends on whether or not you just consider having Nikola Jokic or Joel Embiid just makes it the best front court. You also got LeBron and Anthony Davis. But the thing is, even if it's not the best, it's good. You have quality up-and-coming rookie at center who's going to provide you rim protection and efficiency in the pick and roll and in drop-off situations. And in my opinion, Walker Kessler is eventually going to become a stretch five. It's going to take a few years. But he's got a three-point shot in him. I mean, I just mentioned Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez developed a three-point shot. Al Horford developed a three-point shot. And I think that he can eventually do it. It's not going to be this year, but eventually. Then you got John Collins, a guy who, if the Jazz are able to bring back what he had 3-4 years ago, that's like a 2010 guy. Then Lauri Markkanen, who's himself is like a 25-10 guy. Yeah, that's a pretty dang good backcourt. It's not really a backcourt that's carrying a team. It's more of a backcourt that just forms like the most solid backbone you've ever seen. The thing that would take that front court over the top is having a great backcourt. It's different, obviously, in the ways that, the Giannis and Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic front courts work, where they're the center of the offense and they're carrying the team. Utah's front court is could potentially be the best backbone for a championship team, provided you bring in the right playmakers. And I think that's where the next step is for the Utah Jazz. Is, finding the right guards and free agents. And it's why there's the speculation around Jazz Twitter, Damian Lillard. And I don't think that'll happen, but it's the direction we're all now facing. We're all thinking, okay, the Jazz need to get a playmaker. Since they don't really have one. So, 4781, chiming in on the potential best front court conversation, says, give it a couple years, it will be the best. And I think that would largely rely on whether Taylor Hendricks or John Collins ends up developing into a high-level two-way player. But even then, as I said, I think it would really form more of a foundation, or I use the term backbone, over and over. To where the front court isn't carrying the team, but it gives you everything you need out of a front court. Rebounding, defensive versatility, elite rim protection. Those are all the things. And the ability to stretch the floor. Like literally everything you want out of a front court. Short of having Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, like short of having those players, Utah's front court will likely bring everything you want out of a front court. So, of course, now the trick is to bring in the right backcourt player. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue this conversation. How does Taylor Hendricks fit into all this? Talk a little bit more about John Collins, like how's he going to fit? Is there a chance that he rebounds from this? What obstacles he may have in rebounding from this? But later on, we will move on to some other Jazz topics. It's going to be a Jazz day here, guys. I hope you're ready for that. But mentioned Taylor Hendricks. Him and the other rookies were introduced to the media today in a press conference. We'll play some of that audio, learning a little bit about some of these players. A lot of the press conference is a bit of fluff. It's reporters trying to get sound bites about what these players think of Utah and just try and get positive quotes out of them. But there's a few things I think we can parse out of this. And it's, what these players think of themselves, and are they maybe displaying some of the most important traits we can hope these players have? It's all coming up next, and in the rest of the show, here on the Full Court Press. We'll be back after this.
How many years has it been since you were married? 1 year? 10 years? Longer? This is Jarrett from Jarrett's Fine Jewelry. No matter how many years it's been, you always remember just how you felt. Show her you love her all over again with something special from Jarrett's. We can help you surprise her or bring her in and you can pick it out together. Maybe it's restyling the old ring or upgrading to a larger diamond that she just may have hinted about. No matter how many years it's been, let us help make it special on your anniversary.
Jarrett's Fine Jewelry.
Make it special, make it Hendricks.
It's summertime, which means it's vacation time. There's no better way to vacation than with your own RV. Bull Moose RV in North Logan has a massive selection of gently used RVs in stock. Choose from bumper pulls, fifth wheels, and motorhomes in a selection that'll make you dream of the outdoors. Don't forget, Bull Moose RV has an amazing service department. And if you're looking to sell your RV, they take consignments. Bull Moose RV, 1850 North, 600 West. Online at bullmooseRV.com.
No matter what the conditions, DD Auto and Salvage can get your vehicle up and off your property. Now is the time to plan to make extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage and moving that old vehicle. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy to get rid of your junker vehicles, paying you the most money possible. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details.
When it comes to home care, it's important to know you have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of hospice or home health services, remember that Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient as well as the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call to schedule a free consultation. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, your local hospice and home health provider since 2006.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. We have some surprising but awesome news to announce. Purple, the rocket ship in the mattress industry, has purchased IntelliBed, the best mattress in the industry. We could not be more excited. The beds have yet to arrive, but we flew out with Purple, and seriously, this new IntelliBed Purple lineup, it is immaculate. We have the whole Purple lineup and the IntelliBed Purple lineup. Isn't it time to sleep exceptionally? Only at My Mattress, now partnered with IntelliBed Purple.
Summer is finally here. How do you protect your eyes from the sun? Crystal Vision, a Best of Northern Utah two-time gold medalist, can build prescription sunglasses that match your style and feel. Crystal Vision sunglasses are perfect for golf, a drive in the car, watching ball games, or when you're out for a walk. Whatever your activity, their prescription sunglasses are made from the highest quality materials and components and feature interesting styles and lens colors. Your sunglasses will feel like they were made for you. Crystal Vision, online at crystalvision.com.
Ron Keller Tire.
Since 1958, Ron Keller Tire has been making a deal for every wheel. It's no surprise we save customers personal time by the fast service we provide. And with our large in-stock inventory, we also save customers money on tires every day. Still, a deal for every wheel at Ron Keller Tire. It's a name you can trust. Stop in and experience doubling your savings in time and money.
Why wait? Ron Keller Tire. Why wait?
In Logan, Preston, Malad, and Tremonton.
The Aggies, Jazz, high schools, even the Pee Wees T-ball team. It's the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, The Fan.
Welcome back, Full Court Press. Jason Walker here. Just here all by myself. We will have Eric Franson. He's going to be out for most of this week. He's off on vacation. We will have Ajay Salveson in on the show a couple times later this week. So we're actually going to we're pushing Pick 6 results. I did Pick 6 with Ajay last Thursday. We'll be pushing the announcing of those results to Tuesday. I haven't actually added it up to see who won yet. And I don't remember enough of them to gauge whether or not I think I've won or not. I think it's going to be close. But I'll add those up tonight, tomorrow morning. We'll see. But we'll have them later. But it's just me today reacting to the news with the Utah Jazz. News of John Collins coming to Utah. Obviously, that's the big news of the day. Also, the rookies being introduced in a press conference today for the Jazz. Taylor Hendricks, Bryce Sensabaugh, and Keontae George. Although not necessarily in that order as far as when they spoke. But just looking at the kind of John Collins situation, and specifically in reference to both what the Jazz are going to do with Taylor Hendricks and then what they plan on doing with free agency in either any free agent signings or potential trades. For one, they still have to figure out how they're going to work with Jordan Clarkson, whether or not they're bringing him back. From what I've heard, he's very willing to come back. Obviously, it's going to take more money. They may end up taking most of the rest of their cap space in signing Jordan Clarkson to a bigger and more long-term contract, which, obviously there's room for it, and it's not really a problem even over the next few years just because of the potential timeline with Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton extensions, when John Collins' deal ends up expiring. Spending money on Jordan Clarkson wouldn't be a problem. Although, the issue you'd have is that the Jazz need a playmaking point guard, a passing point guard. We saw how big of a deal it was for Mike Conley to come in and play well. And how much can help Lauri Markkanen. Even Kelly Olynyk, his passing, that little bit. And now you look at where the Jazz lineup is. Let's say they bring Jordan Clarkson back. You have Colin Sexton likely starting at point guard. Maybe they have Chris Dunn start there, but your point guards are basically Colin Sexton, Talon Horton Tucker, who's kind of a shooting guard who can play point guard. Keontae George, Chris Dunn. You see Jordan Clarkson maybe as a playmaker, but each of those guys, they're all like, with maybe the exception of Chris Dunn, they're all shooting guards who can play point guard. And Keontae George is young; he's not ready to take on a volume playmaking role at point guard. So the Jazz don't have the kind of playmaker to facilitate kind of the rest of their roster. Because you look at Markkanen, Collins, Kessler, these are all guys who thrive so much more off ball. They need guys who are going to be able to play make and get the ball to them. Guys who can make more than just the most basic pass. Because, Colin Sexton can do a dump-off pass on a drive or a pick and roll. Maybe he can do a bit of a lob. Maybe, I don't know. And Clarkson and Chris Dunn, they're all the same way where they just don't feel like they have the playmaking chops. At least have one guy who can make a lot of these great passes. And the Jazz don't have that. And, of course, bringing in Collins, it kind of lowers the possibility that they'll be able to find one of those in free agency. Not that there were any super great options to begin with, because your options are aging players, aging high-level role player like Fred VanVleet, or the red flag factory that is Kyrie Irving. So I don't know what they were going to do anyway as far as finding a playmaker, which was a priority even before they brought in John Collins. So it's just going to be interesting. Do the Jazz maybe try and find someone in free agency, or do they go after somebody in a trade? Do they find their point guard in a trade? That may be their best option. Or maybe they're not willing to give up the assets to find that potential playmaker that will help unlock the offense and truly unlock the full potential of the front court of Markkanen, Collins, and Kessler. Because that will be a huge thing and especially unlocking John Collins, is getting him a playmaker. He's not playing with, Trae Young anymore. That's quite the playmaker to lose, to not be playing with anymore. So you got to find somebody who can do a lot of those same things. But another aspect of John Collins that kind of throws a wrench into what we were thinking about this lineup is, what does Taylor Hendricks do now? Because Taylor Hendricks, he lands in Utah, gets introduced to the media, on a live stream, so all the Jazz fans are there on the live stream, watching him, say, he's speaking in front of the media for the first time, his first press conference, aside from little bits and social media spots. And, that was this morning, and then hours later, the Jazz are basically walking up to him and saying, "Hey, Taylor Hendricks, welcome to Utah. By the way, that starting power forward spot we were considering giving to you, that you were going to fight probably with Kelly Olynyk for, and that maybe by the end of the season you might be able to beat out Kelly Olynyk for that starting power forward role if everything goes well. But you know that starting role? We gave it to somebody else. You're not touching it. If Taylor Hendricks gets 20 minutes per game this season, it means he overachieved. And maybe if they trade Kelly Olynyk, then that'll certainly open up some spots in that power forward rotation a little bit more. But as things stand right now, Taylor Hendricks is not guaranteed a dadgum minute. because there are players who can fill his spot. Like, you can play Lowry Markkanen and John Collins and have them take all the power forward minutes. I mean, Kelly Olynyk maybe cleaning up any that Collins and Markkanen didn't get, if that's what you wanted to do. And Kessler, Kessler and Olynyk and Damian Jones combining for the center minutes. Like, you could lock Taylor Hendricks out of the rotation, and you just take him off the roster and you don't even really consider it that much. Like, that's what this roster looks like now. So Taylor Hendricks has to fight for every single minute. He's going to have to prove that he belongs on the court. Maybe that's the best way. Walker Kessler had to do that. He won the starting role over Kelly Olynyk. Now, it helped that Kelly Olynyk was able to move to power forward and Markkanen to small forward. But he earned that starting spot. He 100% earned it. Ochai Agbaji, he was kind of handed a few extra minutes later in the season because of injuries, but he wouldn't have played nearly as much if he hadn't played as well. They let other guys go in. So, Taylor Hendricks, welcome to Utah. Get to work, man. Because you got to earn your spot. And John Collins, he going to be here for 3 years. This isn't a wait him out. This is you have to play better than John Collins. And it makes things really interesting for Taylor Hendricks. Just, he's no longer guaranteed a spot in any sort of way. Maybe that stunts Taylor Hendricks' growth, but it could also be the best thing for him. 9315 texting in says, how much salary cap room do the Jazz have left? And I think the number I saw was that the Jazz, if they let Jordan Clarkson go, if they don't re-sign him, they'll have about $20 million. So taking Jordan Clarkson off the books, assuming he declines his player option, which I think he did. I think the deadline already passed for that. The Jazz would have about $20 million. And they'd probably have to re-sign Clarkson for close to that. I think he was at like $14.5 million or something like that. So the Jazz have enough room for one solid contract. And then I would assume they'd have like the mid-level exception and other things. Not 100% sure how those things work. So the Jazz can basically sign one Jordan Clarkson level player. So that's about how much cap room they're working with now. They spend a lot of it bringing John Collins in. So we'll see how the Jazz handle free agency, where their budget's going to be a little less. They're not going to be big spenders in free agency like some might have expected them to be. They'll bring in, they might re-sign Clarkson. Maybe they'll bring in one other player. Of course, they're running out of roster spots. So we'll certainly see how things go. Now we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to get into the audio that from that press conference earlier today where the Jazz rookies were introduced. What did they say? What can we learn from the press conference? It's always tricky you don't always learn things from press conferences, but I'll try and read a little too deeply into what some of these guys said and see where these guys might fit and how things might go moving forward for these rookies. That's coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Hello, I'm Zane Johnson, personal banker and operations manager at Cache Valley Bank. With nearly a decade of banking experience, I enjoy meeting new people and helping them with their banking needs. I have a reliable team who demonstrate the personalized attention and exceptional service you deserve. Come visit the Smithfield branch and ask for Zane, or give me a call to see what opening an account with Cache Valley Bank can do for you. I look forward to meeting you. Hablo Español, Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Forget the weather this summer with York Home Comfort Systems. Now's your chance to get local rebates, financing options, and industry-leading manufacturer-backed warranties on your new home comfort system. Plus, you can get up to $2,000 in tax credits with IRA 25C federal tax credit. Installing a York Home Comfort System's even more affordable. Maximize your savings and forget the weather this summer. Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning Showroom is west of DI. Online at advancedheating-ac.com.
Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat is locally owned and operated inside the beautiful new Three Peaks Medical Plaza in North Logan. Expect the most cutting-edge techniques, qualified doctors, and friendly staff to ensure the highest quality patient care. The ENT providers have extensive training to properly treat ear, nose, and throat conditions for adults and children. Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat serves all of northern Utah and southern Idaho, accepting most insurance products including SelectMed. Go to CacheValleyENT.com for appointments and details. Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat, located in North Logan and Providence.
For more than a century, couples have shopped at S.C. Needham Jewelers. Known for a large selection of beautiful diamonds, we now have both natural and lab-grown diamonds. You're sure to find a diamond engagement ring that will fit your budget. The possibilities today are endless as you select the perfect ring. Show her you'll cherish her forever with a diamond, either natural or lab-grown, from the store where Utah gets engaged. S.C. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
The Doug Gottlieb Show.
Is there a doctor here?
Listen.
If he's going to be a backup, that's fine. If they're going to get another dude who can create shots, fine. What Chris Paul is a shell of his previous self. And oh yeah, by the way, in his prime he got hurt in key situations. Now after his prime, he's getting hurt every year at this time of year.
The Doug Gottlieb Show.
Weekday afternoons from 1 to 3 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
On July 8th, one of the largest, best supported, and beautiful bike events is in your backyard. The Cash Grand Fondo. Are you ready? The perfect local event to challenge yourself on a 35, 50, 75, or 100-mile course. All entries come with a meal, big finisher medals, and cool rider gifts. Join the Cash Grand Fondo July 8th for the best bike event in the West. To sign up, go to cashgrandfondo.com or Google Cash Grand Fondo.
They never could play it, but they sure can talk about it. Eric Franson and Jason Walker on the Full Court Press.
And we're back here on the Full Court Press. Jason Walker with you here. The Utah Jazz 3 draft selections from last weekend were introduced in a press conference earlier today. I think late morning, early afternoon. That's when they had lined them up in front of the media and had the media asking questions. And a lot of it, like I was saying earlier, kind of fluff. Guys asking, what do you think of Utah? And the draft picks are obviously going to, give good responses. Not that they're lying or being untruthful there, but sorry, I'm hearing sorry, I heard some in my headphones. Anyway, it's not like they're lying, being untruthful or anything like that. It's just that, it's a lot of PR fluff and things like that. So, what can we actually learn from this? Well, we're going to play some of these clips, kind of take you through what I'm thinking, in looking at what they're saying in these clips. What can we pull from these? Bryce Sensabaugh, his, I was probably the least interested in his. He went first. And his role is going to be interesting. He's, the 28th pick. This is a guy who, if he impresses early, maybe he can get into the rotation, but he's a guy that probably spends a lot of his time with the G League this year. There's not a whole lot of room. He was asked about his role and expectations, but, and pretty much everybody was asked this question, but all of them gave pretty, lukewarm answers we don't know yet. And this was Bryce Sensabaugh, when asked about his, his potential role, his expectations.
I'm not too worried about it. I'm just as a young guy, I'm just ready to come in and be a sponge and learn as much as I can, as early as I can. And, whatever they ask me, I'm going to do. And if, my role expands, then so be it. But, I'm definitely going to work. I want to maximize my potential. So, I don't want to just settle for, less than what I'm capable of. So,
And so he was asked kind of about like what it's going to be like for him to play in a smaller role than what he was at Ohio State, where he was the guy at Ohio State. He's the one who takes a lot of the shots. He's not going to be doing that here in Utah. So that's kind of him like, even if the role is lower, he says he's going to do what it takes. Typical response to that kind of question. And so for Bryce Sensabaugh, like expectations for year one, they're kind of low. Like he's going to do what he can. Probably going to end up in the G League, put up some points in the G League, try and work him into the system. Maybe some years down the road, he's able to develop into a solid scorer. But for now, Sensabaugh not going to do much. And that was the main takeaway for me for his section of the press conference, which was one of the longer ones. It felt like the time for each pick diminished as it went on. The next one who spoke after Bryce was Keontae George, and he's the real wild card in this. Because he's the guy who maybe has the biggest ceiling as far as being a scorer and like star player in the way that you think about him, where they're these, playmaking guards, they make all-star teams, and they make the headlines, and they're the ones getting all the points. George probably has the highest ceiling of any of these guys. Like even Taylor Hendricks, who's taken 7 spots ahead of Keontae George, maybe doesn't necessarily have that same ceiling. Although in terms of impact, George and Hendricks are certainly much more on level playing fields. But George, he's a scoring guard. Actually, I'll let him describe it. This was actually Keontae George when talking about what kind of player he sees himself as.
3-level scorer. I'm able to pass with, both right and left hand. Play above the rim, shot maker. Defensively, stay in front of my man, be a pesky defender, knowing rotations. Overall, just.
I think it cut off the last thing that Keontae George said, because he called himself an all-around player. And draft picks calling themselves an all-around player when asked about their play style is about as common as 5'9" men saying that they're 6 foot. So, but the thing is, I don't think he's wrong there. Like what he described himself as is fairly accurate, at least in terms of being a 3-level scorer. That's what he's supposed to be. A passer, he talks about his ability to pass with both hands. He very clearly wants to sell himself as somebody who can be a playmaker and passer. Partly because that's what the Jazz want him to be. And that's probably what a lot of people were telling him pre-draft was like, hey, you're going to have to learn to become a great passer, because 6'4" shooting guards, they have a hard time making it. At least, the only way they tend to make it is either being Dwayne Wade or J.J. Redick. Unless they become playmaking guards. Then the world opens up and suddenly instead of being a short shooting guard, you're a tall point guard. And the world opens up a lot more to tall point guard than it does short shooting guards. Like I said, there aren't too many 6'4" shooting guards that have made a huge impact. And so for Keontae George, he wants to sell himself on the fact that he can be that playmaking guard. So there's some work for him to do. But one of the biggest keys for Keontae George is building up his shooting percentages. He was bad in terms of his shooting percentages as a freshman. Like, I ain't going to sugarcoat it. It was bad. So can he work on that? And there's one thing that he said, that was talked about in his press conference that made me wonder, okay, does he maybe have the tools to overcome that? Because you got to be able to overcome that inefficiency and eventually become an efficient player. And that takes work. And he actually wasn't asked about his shooting percentages, which, I guess that's Utah media. We're a bit soft here. But he was asked about his how he did in terms of, developing his body as far as, strength and conditioning and things like that. I thought that was kind of interesting. And I want to, where is I've got a big list of, here it is. This was his response to that question where he was asked about, developing his body as far as strength and conditioning and whatnot.
I'm blessed enough to have people in my circle that are willing to tell me the right things. My main thing was, getting elite level shape. So that was my process coming into all this. Eating habits, making sure everything was a meal, water, just the little things you hear about, carrying yourself like a pro. And, that's what I did, carrying myself like a professional athlete going through these, 3 months working out. I know what my goal was, and I was going to do whatever it took to put myself in the best position possible to, be successful during this.
So the building up of his body, to be a professional, to be an elite, in elite shape, that's something that stood out, because if he is showing that commitment, then that's something that carries over. It's not like you're only committed to being in elite shape, but you don't, commit to other parts of your game. That kind of mentality where if you're willing to commit to be in the best shape possible, you're also going to be elite in your commitment to getting better. And when it comes to prospects, especially when we're talking about, anything, even from the top of the draft, but even sometimes especially for late lottery and picks, that get up into the late teens, the one thing you want, perhaps more than anything else, is a work ethic. Because if you find a player with work ethic and also has the talent that you usually find around that late lottery in the teens, that's huge, because usually what you're lacking in prospects in that range, in that 12 to 19 range, is they often have some athleticism, but they're a bit rough around the edges and they need some polish. And if they have the work ethic, then they'll push beyond it. The difference between Trey Lyles and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Trey Lyles didn't like 3-hour practices. Giannis turned from a really thin, stickly 6'11" forward into the Giannis we know today. Work ethic. Can Keontae George, does he have that work ethic to eventually become a player who can overcome his shooting? Practice, get the shots up, and eventually develop into a shot maker, the kind that we want to see. Not the kind who shoots 30, 37, 38% from the field. Can he be a highly efficient scorer? That's what you want to see. That's what you want to see out of Keontae George. So we'll see if he's able to do that. But I think that clip, that's the one I'm kind of paying attention to the most, because a lot of the rest of these, it's guys saying, well, I don't know what my role is going to be. I'm going to try and play winning basketball. That's one thing Keontae George has asked multiple times about his role. It's I'm going to come in, do whatever, and just try and play winning basketball. Those kind of fluff things. But trying to draw a little bit more out of these guys. You can sometimes learn a little bit, because their mindset will show. And that plays a little bit more into some clips from Taylor Hendricks. Got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll play a couple of clips from Taylor Hendricks that kind of get an idea, or perhaps reinforce the idea that we may end up having about Taylor Hendricks, about his career trajectory. Let's we hope his career trajectory is. But we'll have that coming up next here as we close out the Full Court Press.
This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. Daryl's is hosting an Independence Day event like no other. Save up to 30% on selected appliances. That includes Whirlpool, Maytag, GE, and more. Double dip and save even more with Daryl's exclusive mail-in rebates of up to $600 on select appliance packages. Apply for 12 months interest-free financing, plus you get Daryl's famous service after the sale. Daryl's Appliance Service and Sales Independence Day event, west on Airport Road, open until 6 p.m. on weekdays, 5 on Saturday.
Looking for a fun family activity? Bring your family down to Movie by the River on the patio at Riverwoods Conference Center. We will be showing the timeless classic The Sandlot, a family-friendly event brought to you by Riverwoods Campus, Lynn's Audio and Video, Lee's Marketplace, and McDonald's. Wednesday, June 28th, movie starts at 9 p.m. Bring your chairs, beanbags, or blankets. $20 per family or $5 per person. Includes popcorn, drink, and cookie. Wednesday, June 28th, 9 p.m. Purchase tickets at door. No outside food. Follow Riverwoods Conference Center on social media for more info.
Advanced Fireplace and Stove wants to thank you for voting them 2 years running the gold medal winners in the Best of Northern Utah contest. With over 35 display models in their showroom, their goal is to make the process of making your home comfortable and cozy an easy experience. With premier brands like Napoleon and Dimplex, they have something for every style, every home, every budget. Building or renovating, they've got you covered. Advanced Fireplace and Stove, where comfort is their business.
Hi, this is Jay Broadbent. If you use a CPAP, need a walker or a wheelchair, or just need some assistance around your home, then this announcement's for you. Alpine Home Medical is opening a new store in Tooele. We're planning on opening our doors this summer. Check us out on social media at AlpineHME or alpinehomemedical.com to stay up to date.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
That's alpinehomemedical.com.
The new Prodigy Brewing on Center Street in Logan offers an atmosphere that's vibrant, energetic, and friendly. Serving handmade juicy burgers, wood-fired pizzas, wings, nachos, and locally crafted beer while bringing a unique space to downtown Logan. Now offering lighter lunch options like personal-sized pizzas and sliders, or choose from your favorites like wings, beer cheese, fried pickles, and more. Stop by for a quick and delicious lunch that will get you back to work on time. Experience Prodigy Brewing, exceptional food, extraordinary service, and family-friendly on Center Street in downtown Logan.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Final segment here on the Full Court Press. Thank you so much for joining me today. As we go over the news, John Collins traded to the Jazz earlier today, or at least the announcement. The deal won't go through until I think I saw July 6th, so you won't see the Jazz announcing it until then. Free agency will actually have already started by then. But certainly some good news for the Jazz, maybe another reclamation project, something they can work on. But I'll be going over just some of the rookie introductions. They had their introductory press conference. And some things from Taylor Hendricks. And mind you, this audio wasn't as good. For some reason during this section, there's this staticky background noise that wasn't present when Keontae George and Bryce Sensabaugh were speaking. So apologize for that. It's not going to sound super pretty. But one thing that I thought was interesting, he was asked, like, who does Taylor Hendricks model his game after? He self-compared him to a couple of different players that was certainly a bit interesting in terms of, how is he going to perceive himself in this league? Who is he maybe trying to be like? So here's what Taylor Hendricks said, who he compares himself to.
I would say like Bam Adebayo or Jaren Jackson Jr., like those type of guys that, kind of do a little bit of everything, defend, block shots, and then like our key roles in the offense and be able to stretch the floor and just things like that.
So Taylor Hendricks saying he compares himself to Bam Adebayo, Jaren Jackson Jr., and hopefully you guys can hear this audio. It was quiet when I was editing in. I tried to turn the sound up. I know when we play it off our computers, it doesn't always sound super loud, but basically saying he sees himself like Taylor Hendricks sees himself like Jaren Jackson Jr. and Bam Adebayo. Now, those guys aren't superstars. They're not, it'd be weird if you said like Kevin Durant. A lot of 6'9", 6'10" players want to be like Kevin Durant, but he sees himself similar to these like high-level role players. Jaren Jackson Jr., Defensive Player of the Year. Bam Adebayo, who wants to think he's a Defensive Player of the Year, but who is an all-star level player. And that's who we'd hope Taylor Hendricks can be. If he can be either of those players, sign me up. I'd love him to be that. But maybe he doesn't end up like a star-level scorer, but he certainly shows that he's willing to, he admires guys who aren't necessarily superstars. He tries to model his game after guys who aren't necessarily superstars. And he's clearly motivated to try and be like them. Another interesting thing he talked about, he's actually asked about, Jazz players that maybe he's seen or admired or something like that. He actually brought up Colin Sexton, talking about how he was one of the players that he had liked to watch.
I like Colin Sexton just since high school, so he was like one of those players that I always like watched. And you know, Jazz on like the West Coast, so I didn't really get to catch too many games like before. So, you know.
What did you like about Collins' game?
Just that he's like a dog. Like his mentality and like the way he comes on the court is just, you know, you just.
Okay, yeah, again, this one randomly. Some of them have been cutting off the end, some haven't. But the fact that Taylor Hendricks liked to watch Colin Sexton is a fun little quip that you can throw out there. Why he liked to watch Colin Sexton is the more interesting part, and it's why I played it along with himself comparing to Bam and Jaren Jackson Jr. And that's that he says, you know, Colin Sexton, as the kids say, he got that dog in him. And that's something that I certainly like to hear out of Taylor Hendricks. So we're maybe seeing some good mentality out of these rookies. That's what you want. You want these rookies to have good mentalities, good work ethics, and strong motivation to be the best player they can. If you get that, you know, you can't go wrong with the draft pick. But thank you so much for listening. Join us tomorrow. Keep talking about the Jazz and the Aggies.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. Major League Baseball has undergone a seismic change over the last 12 months. The league outlawed the shift, sped up the game through the use of a pitch clock, and increased the size of bases. The changes were put in place to promote offense. And when you look at what has happened throughout the start of the season, the results speak for themselves. In 2021, baseball set a record with 9 recorded no-hitters in a single season. 2022, the league experienced 4 no-hit games. And by this time last season, 3 had already been completed. But the trend is starting to swing in a different direction. There have been some close calls, but no team has been no-hit this season. No-hitters are rare, so it may be too small of a sample size to jump to any conclusions, but with the game now more wide open, hitter-friendly than ever before, it's hard to say Major League Baseball's rule changes haven't played a significant part in this historic turnaround. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.